What the hell, Rotten Tomatoes? What the hell? What the hell? Hey guys, I hope you're all well, and I am so sorry that I had to resort to making this video, but I don't have a choice because I am in utter shock today, this morning, when I looked online and I saw that Suicide Squad, the latest movie in the DC cinematic universe, one of my most anticipated movies of the year, the movie that I and everyone else was hoping would finally get the universal acclaim all the Marvel movies get, and finally DC would get their cinematic universe properly going. Finally, the critics would have a change of heart and see that DC movies are not that bad. Sadly, I was completely wrong. I cannot believe that Suicide Squad only has a 33% on Rotten Tomatoes. That's right, only 33% of critics liked it, while 67% didn't. And I'm like, okay, you critics are you're just being complete douchebags at this point. You are just hating the DC Cinematic Universe on purpose at this point. You are just refusing to see anything positive or redeeming about DC. You are just on purposely favouring Marvel just because Marvel, well, let's face it guys, the only reason Marvel are as phenomenal as they are because they are backed up by Disney, and of course Warner Brothers backs up DC, and of course Warner Brothers are very brave, actually challenging DC and Marvel to build their own cinematic universe. And I can see why people love Marvel movies. I am not a complete DC fanboy who hates Marvel. Far from it. I really like the Marvel Cinematic Universe. They do make some great movies. I mean, I'm a fan of the Avengers films. I have a lot of fun with them. They're great fun. They're spectacular. Have great characters brought to life. And yeah, I mean, DC. I love the DC Cinematic Universe as well. People hate on DC just because it's not fun like Marvel, and I can understand. We all love a fun comic book movie that's simplistic, but DC, it's ambitious, it's taking risks. You've got to applaud it for that. It's doing things like The Dark Knight did when it came out at the time. Everyone loved it. It was such a phenomenal because it did things and went places that no other superhero film had ever gone before. It did things that no other superhero film would dare to do. It was a dark, epic, suspenseful crime thriller that was not in any way aimed at kids. It proved that comic book movies can be sophisticated and epic stories, and I like the fact that DC movies are dark because then you can tell them apart from Marvel. They don't have to be exactly the same as Marvel, otherwise there'd be nothing original about them. If dark works for DC, then just, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Of course, this is not the first time the DC Cinematic Universe has been panned by critics alike. I mean, 3 years ago when Man of Steel came out, I like many DC fans were anticipating it as hell. The trailers were just masterpieces. Because I of course love Superman, being the comic book fan I am, and to see this icon being brought to the big screen and what looked like the most epic Superman film that was ever going to be made. And when me and my mate Steven saw it, it not only lived up to expectations, it surpassed them. It had perfect cast, spectacular, flawless action, a wonderful score by Hans Zimmer, and a compelling story. Yet the critics at the time just panned well, not necessarily panned it. I mean, some liked it. There was at least some positive reviews. I mean, it got a 56%, so half liked it, half didn't. But I'm like, such a masterpiece. I don't see anything wrong with it. I mean, of course, critics' biggest complaint was that it had too much action and lack of story and lack of character development and too much destruction, in which, and Superman, of course, killing Zod at the end, and Superman, of course, wouldn't kill. But this is an original new take on Superman, and we never, and like, I didn't see anything wrong with it. Those flaws didn't bother us at all. Like, the action was still spectacular. There was still a compelling story in it, and we never actually saw anybody die in Metropolis, at least not any innocents. And Superman had to kill Zod if he was put in an impossible situation. If he hadn't, an innocent family would have died. And then, of course, we had Batman vs Superman, which I was again so hyped for, so anticipating. Batman and Superman are finally going to be in a movie. I was one of the few people who defended Ben Affleck as Batman, and when it came out, people fucking hated it. It was panned as hell. People were bitching about how it was overstuffed. There was too much focused on setting up the Justice League, not enough on Batman and Superman. They hated Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor. They hated, of course, the Martha scene. They hated Doomsday, and they complained also how Batman kills people and they kill Superman off at the end. Well, I admit, maybe it could have focused a little more on Batman versus Superman, since that's the title and should be the main focus of the film. But for the most part, it did a brilliant job. And Batman killing people, again, he didn't have a choice but to. The Martha scene, I'll talk about the Martha scene when I review Batman vs Superman, but just to let you know, I proudly defend that scene. And Batman Superman, it only has a 27%. I'm like, come on, critics, it's not that bad. Have you seen Twilight? Have you seen 50 Shades of Grey? Those are films that literally nobody cares about making good movies, and the studio that just wants money, whereas DC are attempting a cinematic universe very in an original way, very masterfully, and they're at least trying, and all they're getting is bad reviews in return. And of course, Suicide Squad, I was hyped as hell for. I'm like, finally, this is gonna be great. The trailers look awesome. Everybody loves them. I loved the use of the Queen song in the second trailer. Jared Leto as the Joker looked awesome. Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn looked fantastic. The entire Suicide Squad team looked spectacular. It looked like it was going to be fun, both fun and dark at the same time. I was thinking to myself, I am seeing it. This is going to be the best DC movie yet. It looks so charming, full of magic, so much fun. It feels like and looks like a comic book film. It's gonna be wonderful. It is gonna be one of the best movies of the year, and DC are finally gonna be put on the map with this movie. Are finally gonna get the rave reviews and praise and love Marvel is getting. And then this morning happened, and I was like, that's it, critics. I am completely done with you just siding with Marvel and hating DC bullshit. At this point, please, just attempt to put aside your hate and see something positive about DC. I don't see what's wrong with it. I mean, I know DC is sponsored by Warner Brothers, and Warner Brothers, I admit, they are not perfect, but no studio or company in the film industry is perfect. They all make mistakes. I mean, even Disney isn't flawless. Even Disney have their bad movies, but And of course, I know Warner Brothers last year made that terrible Pan movie that which I didn't care less about, but they've moved on from that with the DC Cinematic Universe. They are clearly passionate and loving it and trying. They they are desperate to stand out in some way against Marvel and desperate for a success since. And you're not forgetting Warner Brothers are behind Harry Potter, one of the greatest film franchises of all time. Harry Potter really got them going as a company. And of course, they made the Dark Knight trilogy, which is again in with DC Comics. So the people who always uh, say, oh, Marvel is far superior to DC in every aspect. Well, look back on the Dark Knight trilogy. The Dark Knight trilogy is considered one of the best, if not the best, superhero trilogy of all time, period. And that's by DC. Have Marvel done anything close to that? I don't think so. Try as they may, they will never top the Dark Knight trilogy. And just uh I think Suicide Squad I I personally think it looks great. I can see why a lot of fans were anticipating it. I mean, people are critics are complaining about how little Jared Leto's Joker and how little Ben Affleck's Batman are it, but did Batman really need to be in this movie a lot? Not really. It's not a Batman film. And did Jared Leto's Joker, did he need to be in the whole film? Not really. But I'm sure the scenes he will have will be great. And I know the critics are complaining that they cut out way too much of this film. There are a few scenes in the trailers, as Grace Randolph pointed out, that are not in the movie. And fair enough, that does sound disappointing. I mean, why would they put scenes in a trailer if they weren't going to show them in the movie at all? But you know, it's not too much of an issue. That's called editing. If they don't think this scene's going to be relevant to the plot, then they cut it out. That's a daunting job for an editor. Well, we'll see how it turns out. We'll see whether those scenes were wisely cut or not. But also people complain about how uh, the how it has thin characters. I mean, but I have heard other more positive reviews say that the characters do get backstory. In fact, the first half hour of the film apparently is dedicated to giving the Suicide Squad, particularly Deadshot, all of backstories, and that's great to hear. So I think these characters could be really three-dimensional and complex as hell, and they look like they're brought to life out of the comics. Just consider both judging Marvel and DC fairly. One doesn't have to be better than the other. They're both great. So perfectly. Do we have to live in a world where opinions on movies is like entering a war zone? You're gonna piss off half and half for loving or hating a movie. You should not just judge your opinion off what someone else has told you and expect you to think of a movie. It's your own opinion. There's nothing wrong with that. Don't be afraid to disagree. I mean, at least Grace Randolph, yes, her opinions are very controversial, but at least she's honest. That's what I love about her. And even Jeremy Jordan's was honest when he loved Suicide Squad. So clearly, is a lot to love about it. And if Jeremy can love it, I'm like, why can't they? So, guys, when you go into a DC and Marvel movie, don't just take one side. Like both. They're both great. I don't see the difference. So guys, do you agree with me? Please comment below, let me know. Please like this video, subscribe to my channel, please follow me on Twitter and on my Google+, and I'll see you next time.